If you do anything wrong in your life, and I find out about it, I'm gonna try to take everything away from you.
Let's bring all the pieces together for a second, because this is where the story stops feeling like random Hollywood gossip and starts feeling like a recurring cycle that keeps showing up around the same kinds of people.
Has always been funnier than me. And Chris Rock has always been funnier than me. I've always been aware of who was funnier than me. I've just also been aware of who wasn't. So now I know the real Bernie Mac stories, and I know that the people that made money off Bernie Mac didn't like him.
The whole Twitter beef with this guy, Katt Williams, that Katt Williams starts saying things to this fake Dave Chappelle that's hurting the real Dave Chappelle's feelings. So I go to the comedy show, and I see Kevin Hart there. I'm like, what's up, Kevin? And he's like, yo, man, Katt's here.
You've got Dave Chappelle, you've got Katt Williams, you've got comedians like T.K. Kirkland and Jim Breuer, all describing versions of the exact same pressure from different angles. And what's strange is how often the pattern repeats. A celebrity becomes extremely successful. They gain influence. Then at some point, they start talking more openly about the entertainment business itself.
Have a difference of opinion.
But Dave Chappelle was decapitated in front of us. And until we deal with that, until we deal with the fact that a devout Muslim who doesn't eat bacon was accused of being a crackhead, until we establish the fact that they said that he went to Africa to smoke coke, when we know they don't have running water and food over there.
Not just funny stories, not harmless industry gossip. The structure, power, control, manipulation, humiliation, silence, fear. And almost immediately, the public conversation shifts away from what they said and toward questioning their mental state, motives, or stability.
Against the Illuminati at our own detriment. When people are against the Illuminati, then they get punched in the face all the time. The press hates them, and nobody likes them. End quote.
We all love Dave Chappelle.
Exactly. Dave Chappelle has never been a part of the Illuminati. They don't want him or me or people like us.
Yeah.
But now it's not necessary for us to stir up that hornet's nest unless we intend to get stung 1,000,000 times. I didn't understand that. They had to sting me 1,000,000 times. Right. I'm still not going to join, but I respect. Chappelle was decapitated in front of us. They called him Pilot Boy, because he had 19 pilots in Hollywood and everybody passed on him and said his show wasn't worth it. Then when he made $500 million, they said even though his contract said he should get half of it, they said he made too much for the contract to be valid, so we'll offer you 10% of what you made. You mean he made $500 million and they offered him 50? Yes. And he said, what do you think my fans are gonna say when they find out you offered me 10% of what I made you? And they said, your fans will believe that you're a crazy crackhead by the time you get home. He got on a flight in LA, and by the time he got to Ohio, it was so.
That's the part people keep noticing, because whether someone believes every single claim or not, the response pattern feels eerily consistent. Crazy, paranoid, bitter, jealous, difficult. Those labels arrive fast, and Dave Chappelle understood that years ago. That's why so many people now rewatch his older interviews differently. Because when Dave talks about pressure, about Hollywood being a monster, about people trying to control comedians, about walking away from $50 million, he doesn't sound like someone making random observations anymore. He sounds like someone who saw the machinery from the inside and decided the cost of staying fully plugged into it was too high.
That people tell lies. A cat's on. Where are the stories? Why is there no story of anybody who ever sold it to me, did it with me? I got 5 daughters. I got 5 sons. You can't afford to be a comedian and be black and be short and have me as a op. Not just because I'm him, but because you're not.
And honestly, that Africa chapter became symbolic for a lot of people because of how aggressively the narrative got framed afterward. Think about it. One of the biggest comedians alive leaves the industry temporarily to clear his head, and suddenly headlines everywhere start implying mental collapse. That framing matters, Because once the public accepts the idea that somebody is unstable, everything they say afterward becomes easier to dismiss.
Thanks for that softball question. It's two answers. First of all, let's be very, very clear. It is possible that there isn't anything funnier than a guy in a dress. And if that's the case, then it might also be said that there's nothing funnier than a black guy in a dress. Okay, well, I watched all of my friends throughout my entire life be able to dunk a basketball, but not me. So everybody can't do everything. So, you know, some of us make choices. I think it's not a biggest choice for others. I'm saying at the end of the day, Kevin doesn't have to worry about what people are going to say about him wearing a dress because of the long line.
That mechanism exists far beyond Hollywood, too. History is full of people who became easier to ignore once they were publicly painted as irrational. And Dave himself basically hinted at that directly when he said, "Maybe I know stuff people don't want me to talk about, so they call me crazy." That line stayed with people for years, especially because of what happened next. He came back stronger, not weaker, not broken, sharper, more calculated, more layered, more respected than ever.
Type my name in, they were like, you cannot use celebrity names. I was like, word? So then I go on Twitter, and the same thing. It's like, oh, it's a fake Dave Chappelle. My name, my picture was not me. And it turned out, Jimmy, the guy was like hilarious. Like a week or two into it, he just turns evil. And he starts like tweeting all this stuff to comedians I work with and starts like a whole Twitter beef with this guy, Katt Williams. That Katt Williams starts saying things to this fake Dave Chappelle that's hurting the real Dave Chappelle's feelings. So I go to the comedy show and I see Kevin Hart there. I'm like, what's up, Kevin? And he's like, yo, man, Katt's here. Like I was in trouble or something. Like, what? So then I go over to Katt and I'm like, yo, Katt, I gotta talk to you. I don't have a Twitter page. And he's like, so what, Dave Chappelle? He's like, what are you trying to say? And I'm like, I'm trying to say I don't have a Twitter page. He goes, so that's not unusual. I don't have a Twitter page either.
That completely disrupted the original narrative. Because if someone truly collapsed mentally from pressure, how do they return and dominate stand-up comedy at an even higher level than before? That contradiction is why people never fully let the story go. And now, after Katt Williams' Club Shay Shay interview exploded online, all those old Dave Chappelle conversations suddenly feel connected again in the minds of viewers. Because Katt essentially skipped the coded language. That's what made his interview feel different. Dave often wraps heavy truths inside comedy and ambiguity. Katt came straight at names, systems, and accusations directly. No layers, no protection, no subtlety, and afterward, the backlash machine activated almost immediately. Old controversies resurfaced, old arrests resurfaced, old narratives resurfaced. That reaction itself became part of the conversation. And then Katt disappeared from the non-stop media cycle instead of milking the attention. That silence made people even more suspicious. Because in today's entertainment culture, viral moments usually lead to non-stop content, non-stop interviews, non-stop monetization. Katt didn't really do that, which caused people to start asking, did he say too much? Did someone tell him to relax? Did he back away intentionally? Now, to be fair, there's an important line here that people should not cross recklessly. There is a huge difference between recognizing industry pressure and jumping into every internet conspiracy theory imaginable. Hollywood absolutely has power structures. PR systems absolutely shape narratives. Studios absolutely protect money and image aggressively. That's reality. But social media also has a habit of turning speculation into certainty extremely fast. And sometimes people begin connecting dots emotionally instead of factually. Still, the reason these conversations keep surviving is because there's enough truth mixed into the entertainment business for audiences to believe the larger pattern might be real. Powerful industries protect themselves. Public image matters. Certain stories get amplified while others disappear. Certain people receive protection while others get isolated. None of that is controversial. The deeper fear comes from wondering how far that protection system actually goes behind the scenes. And comedians are uniquely positioned inside that world because comedians often observe things everyone else is too careful to say openly. That's why comedy has always made powerful people uncomfortable. A joke can sneak truth past defenses faster than a speech ever could. Dave Chappelle mastered that art. Katt Williams detonated it directly. And now millions of people online are staring at both of them, wondering if they were describing the same hidden system from two completely different angles. When you step back and connect all these stories together, this is where the conversation stops sounding like isolated Hollywood drama and starts feeling like a repeated pattern that too many people have described in too many similar ways to completely ignore. You have Dave Chappelle, one of the most respected comedians alive, walking away from $50 million at the peak of his power, getting labeled unstable afterward, then returning years later more careful, more strategic, but still openly calling the entertainment industry a monster. You have T.K. Kirkland confirming that pressure around certain roles and certain tests inside Hollywood has existed for decades, long before social media ever amplified these conversations. You have younger comedians like Brandon describing firsthand experiences where warnings from older comics suddenly made sense only after certain career moments happened. Then you have Jim Breuer describing Hollywood like a mafia system where scandals disappear, narratives get managed, and careers can shift overnight depending on who stays in line and who doesn't. And finally, you have Katt Williams sitting across from Shannon Sharpe on Club Shay Shay and saying the quiet part out loud without hiding behind punchlines anymore. That's what made the interview hit differently. Dave Chappelle usually speaks in layers, metaphors, jokes, double meanings. Katt walked in and stripped the layers away completely. Names, claims, mechanisms, accusations, direct shots. And afterward, something people found unsettling happened. Silence. Not endless interviews, not a giant media victory lap, not non-stop reactions. Silence. That silence became part of the mystery itself, because people started wondering whether it was strategic, forced, calculated, or simply exhaustion after detonating one of the biggest entertainment interviews in years. And this is where Dave Chappelle becomes such an important comparison point, because Dave's entire post-Africa career almost feels like someone who learned exactly where the invisible boundaries are. Watch his modern stand-up closely and you notice something. He still says dangerous things. He still critiques power. He still pokes directly at institutions, media systems, politics, celebrity culture, and social hypocrisy. But he does it with extreme precision now. Enough truth to land, enough humor to survive, enough ambiguity to avoid getting completely cornered. That balance matters. Because one thing Dave clearly learned is that once powerful systems decide you are crazy, unstable, or difficult, public perception can shift incredibly fast. And that's why so many people keep revisiting the Africa situation differently today. At the time, the dominant media narrative was simple. Dave cracked under pressure. But years later, after he rebuilt himself into arguably the most respected stand-up comic on earth, many people started questioning whether the original story was ever fully accurate in the first place. Especially after Dave himself said, "Maybe I know stuff people don't want me to talk about, so they call me crazy." That line stayed alive because it reframed everything. Suddenly, people stopped seeing the Africa trip as just burnout and started viewing it as a man intentionally stepping away from a machine he no longer trusted. Now, whether every conspiracy theory attached to these conversations is true is a completely separate issue. That's important to say clearly. There is a real danger in turning speculation into absolute fact just because multiple celebrities describe pressure inside Hollywood. Entertainment industries absolutely manage narratives. PR systems absolutely protect brands. Studios absolutely reward cooperation and punish unpredictability. That's real. But social media also has a tendency to connect every strange event into one giant hidden mastermind theory. And sometimes people begin interpreting symbolism and coincidence emotionally instead of logically. Still, the reason these discussions refuse to disappear is because the emotional core underneath them feels believable to a lot of people. Powerful industries often reward obedience. Truth-tellers often get isolated. Public image often matters more than honesty. And once someone is framed as unstable, audiences become less likely to trust what they're saying. That pattern exists far beyond comedy or Hollywood. Politics, corporate culture, media, music, sports, everywhere. Which is why this conversation became bigger than celebrity gossip. Comedy has always functioned as a place where uncomfortable truths can slip through disguised as entertainment. Dave Chappelle mastered that style. Katt Williams abandoned the disguise entirely, and now millions of viewers are watching what happens afterward and asking themselves the same uncomfortable question. If this many entertainers from different generations keep describing similar pressures inside the same industry, how much of it are we supposed to dismiss as coincidence?